Welcome to Brightly Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we use our good and bad experiences, friendship, and passions to inspire thought provoking conversation and soul driven advice. This season, we're traveling from the fool's journey to the hero's adventure to better help you create a life worth living and step more brightly into yourself inch by inch.
Tracy,
Hi, Amy. Hey,
how are you doing? What?
who cares how I am? I got a question for you. A riddle,
Shoot.
a query, mind
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
If I were to say, hey, next week when we record, can we move the time up? Do you think that I'm asking for 2 hours early or 2 hours later?
Wow. So I immediately thought of 2 hours earlier, but it very well could be 2 hours later as
Right?
well, couldn't it?
So apparently this was like the question when I first joined TikTok years, ages ago, eons ago. Uh, and it really demonstrated how differently people think about time. And like I schedule for a living, or a good chunk of my professional career has
Yeah.
been arranging very complex appointments and meetings with so many people. And so I've always known this about people, and I've been very specific in how I communicate about time. And so many people just were flabbergasted that it could be different. So I love that you were like, oh, I can see. Which, my next question, do you see time then? Like they say time is linear. Like I hear people describe what a calendar looks like in their head, and I'm just like blown away. Or even I recently
But
saw a TikTok where a girl was like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is even, and Tuesday, Thursday is odd. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that. And someone else was like, oh no, no, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are the odd ones, and Tuesday, Thursdays are even. And it's like, we all have these weird associations with time.
right. But when you say, do you see time? I'm how I see time is through like my children.
Hmm.
So in other words, like time has passed because now they're grown. But I think you're talking more about like, I do not picture a calendar in my head. No, I don't think I do. Now I feel like I need to just like stop the recording and go sit in a corner and think about this
Or
thing that's
if you were
called
to
time.
if you were to think of all the months in a year, are they lined up? Are they in quarters? Are they in a circle? A lot of people picture them in a circle, and
Yeah, and I
months
think
in a
for
circle.
me,
Ooh.
I don't, so if I think of a month, it's like, I guess I do think of it as a square, but if I think of the whole year, because I love the wheel of the year, so I think of it as a circle. It is cyclical to me.
See, and when I think of the wheel of the year, I'm not thinking of time, I'm thinking of seasons,
Yeah. So I
which the
guess,
social construct of time we apply to the wheel of the year, but I put the wheel of
yes,
the year first.
yes. Again, I feel,
Layers.
yeah, lots of layers.
So I say all the time on this show, time is a social construct. Have we ever talked about that? What does that mean to you whenever I say it? That time isn't real? And do you agree?
Well, I agree to a certain extent that, first of all, that time is a social construct and it was developed because things had to get done, right? We all had to agree on something so that we could all either work or do the things that needed to be done at the same time. However, I think that if there were no way to calculate time, like if we didn't have clocks, if we didn't have calendars, we would understand time passing in a different way. We would probably understand it in a much more holistic way, right? Because we would just be like, it's getting dark, it's
Well, what
getting
about if
light.
you, depending on the time of year or the season, there are some places in the world where it just stays dark
Right.
for many moons. So how would you calculate without light? How would you calculate time?
Yeah. Well, wasn't there that experiment where the people were put into like that cave or something, I don't know, where there wasn't light, and that then you did have to just like, okay, now or there was light. I mean, there were light bulbs. They could have light that way, but they had no access to sunlight. So they didn't know when it was day or night. And
Was
they just
this
they
research or prison?
this was research.
Okay.
It was research, and it was actually done quite a few years ago. But what happened was they created their own rhythm. But I think the other thing that happened was I think there was a weird, with the circadian rhythm without any sun ever, not just seasonally, because even seasonally, there is it's not pitch dark, and there is sort of that at a certain time of day, there's a little bit of sunlight, or just a little bit of less sort of graying. It's more of a graying type of thing. I don't know. I don't know the
But
answer to that.
so time, we've associated the Earth spinning around
Yes.
in a day, in an Earth day, a 24-hour, just under 24-hour period. We're associating that as time. That's just how that's how we're explaining our man-made social construct of time. That's
Mm-hmm.
not time. The sunlight exists 100% of the time, right? So if we
Mm-hmm.
were out in space right now and just sitting out there, not spinning, just standing still, would time still be passing if it was light all the time? Because you brought up circadian rhythms. That's not time. You brought up your children, that you've seen them through the passage of time. No, you've seen
Mm-hmm.
aging. If we didn't age, or if we stopped aging at a certain point, what is time?
Why you want to be messing with me like this? Why? What have I done to you, Tracy?
Think about this all the time, Amy, that you brought up clocks. So without technology, what is time? You brought up people needing to know where to be, right? So that's just more society and civilization, which again, social construct of time.
Yep.
We used to correlate meet somewhere at high noon because other than high noon, it was a crapshoot whether we were thinking it's the same time or not. Right. And what do you do on a
Yeah.
cloudy day? And so my favorite thing that I have learned in business class, like business, like I don't, it was I think it was supply chain logistics is the class that I was taking, and it was that time zones did not exist in the world, not even locally, not even just like nationally in the United States, didn't exist anywhere until the railroad became a thing, and we suddenly needed to start and stop things on a schedule.
Did
And
you tell me that,
I
or
did.
did I read
It's
that?
my favorite fun
Yes.
fact.
That is amazing to me that there were no time zones until
Yeah.
the railroad.
And now if you go to time.gov, you can see what time it is in the United States, because some people say, screw you in your time zone, screw you in your daylight savings time. In Arizona, we say what time it is. But like that whole thing about like, how do you picture time and what is time to you? I know very brilliant and smart individuals, some you currently work with, that time zones confuse the crap out of them. And the fact that I can sit in a meeting and someone like brings up Germany or just some other country, and I was like, oh, that's X amount of hours ahead from wherever I'm in the world. And they're like, how do you do that? I was like, well, London is 6 hours ahead Central Time, and I'm currently in New York, so that's 5 hours ahead. And then Germany's this many from there. And it's like some sort of like formula. And they're just looking at me and I was like, it's important to know what's going on in the world, like if they're asleep or not. But I know that because I did business and I needed to know that Asia was going to call me at 3 in the morning if the factory
Right,
had a problem. Um,
right, right.
or that if I emailed them a problem, they weren't going to respond for 8 hours.
So I'm actually fascinated by like time zones and stuff like that. So I've always had in my phone where you see what time it is, and
Yeah,
what the
the
weather's like.
world
I
clock.
I have like
Me too.
Minnesota, New York, Paris. Like I've got different countries in there because I want to know what time it is there.
And Amy, it's my goal. So for New Year's, I believe so. Australia is like the a first major country or continent to experience the New Year. So like I mean, there are little islands and stuff that probably hit the sun a little bit earlier, but it's like the most notable and the biggest firework display and the one that ends up on YouTube or the news, right? So
Are you gonna catch up with every New Year? What are you
well,
gonna
so
do?
that's my goal is I wanna experience New Year's first, and then I believe it's the Christmas islands that are last. And so I want to do one of each in my lifetime.
Love it.
But I also like my favorite running joke was like New Year's Eve, right? Because they're slightly ahead in 2012 with all the Mayan calendar drama, and like somebody wouldn't have just stopped drawing a calendar at some point. Like that just completely escaped everybody. Like, no, it's prophecy, which I mean, maybe it was. And life's kind of gone to shit in this timeline since then. But at Facebook, one of my most like posts is like, could someone let me know what time zone the world ends in? Just making plans for New Year's. Like, do I buy this dress or not? Is it worth it? Like, are we gonna slow burn for 24 hours, right? Or is it just like all at once as soon as the light touches the first one, or just do the Christmas Islands get to see 2012 and then we all go poof? Like,
exactly.
but it just like that whole 1999 into the 2000s millennium drama of Y2K. And everybody, you know, now 23 years later is like, oh, it was no big deal. People freaked out. It was like, oh no, it was a very big deal.
It was a very big deal.
Much smarter people fixed it and worked a very large portion of their life, took their time to make sure the world
Yes.
technologically didn't end at that point. And it's just so amazing to me, like somebody didn't think time-wise we'd go past 1999 with writing all these scripts.
No, I think that was an extremely lazy person who was like, whatever, I won't be around then.
Or just like you don't think that far, right? Like
no. Oh, that's what it is, Tracy, is that the people aren't future proofing anything, right? Yeah, they can't do that.
I made an online purchase yesterday, as I just told you, and I was like, oh, I don't usually use this card. I have to look, and it's newer. They sent me a new one at the end of the year. I have to look at the expiration. It's not like top of mind. And I was like, May 2027, that's not a real year. That's 4 years away. It's gonna be May in 2 weeks. We're halfway into April, and I still feel like it's March 8th. Like, so I say time is a social construct. It's really just a suggestion for me because I don't understand. Like biologically, my circadian rhythm is like, no, we're 17, and it's like not even 2000 yet. We're fine.
Yeah. So there are times that I wish I could live in a way that was not where clocks and calendars didn't matter so much in my life, because I feel like I would just like wake up whenever I wanted to wake up and then do whatever I was going to do and then take a nap at some point and then, I just fall asleep when I'm tired and then wake up when I wake up. I just think that sounds delicious.
I think you just described like what's wrong with society, even outside of time. That there's this grind that we have to live where we do have to pay attention to so many things, and not what our bodies need and what we need. And I understand trash needs to be picked up, like civilization needs to turn, we need doctors, we need people in school to keep going, but at the same time, we don't get to use our limited precious time here because we do age. And that's actually why I was thinking of like this myth of time. Like I bring up social construct of time all the time, right? I've been seeing a lot of things on social media lately around aging and like encouraging people, like just because you're 28, you haven't started your family yet, or you haven't found your big break, like keep going, it'll find you. And I was like, you're 28. Take a breath. You're been an adult for 10 full years yet. Like you're a baby adult. Like you're a 5th grade adult. Like this is
5th grade adult. That's my new favorite thing. You're a 5th grade adult.
It's just like, I don't know. So I'm pushing 40, single, never been married, no kids yet, and none of that. And it was very deliberate in my 20s because I have friends that got married right out of high school, and like more power to them. They're successful in their life and love. But I was like, no way, I'm not fully formed enough yet, right? So I went off to college And then again, people that met in college, just getting started in their careers, got engaged shortly after college and were married and having babies by 24. And I was like, I'm a baby, right? Like I'm in no position to like your brain's not even developed fully until you're 25. My prefrontal cortex is not here yet. I can't make these kinds of decisions, right? I still run out of money before it's time to get gas and groceries. Like I need more time. And then now all of a sudden I'm in my 30s and I was like, oh, where did the time go? So I get you want to be intentional with your time and you want to invest your time, but I don't know, you're almost 30 years older than me, right? So like what do
Mhm.
you think about the concept of like your life stops at 30? Or what was it for you or like what do you see of all of us, fifth grade adults? I think I'm in my high school of adulthood, so I'm like looking for my what's that Dr.
Yeah.
Seuss book you give everybody when they graduate?
Yeah. Oh, the places you'll go.
All the places you'll go, right? Like I
Yeah.
need your sage advice and wisdom for like you still have to like you got remarried and had a baby shortly
I
just a
was
little bit
40.
further than
Yeah,
so
I was
it's a little
40.
older than me.
Right. But so, I did get married pretty young. I think how old was I? Let's see. I think I was 24 when I got married. And then I think I did finally have the developed brain when I had my first baby. So I think I was 25 or 26. I might have been
Okay.
26 when I had my first baby. And as far as time, some of the things I remember about time is like when I finally had kids, I was like, what was I doing for all that time when I didn't have kids? Like, why didn't I like write 3 books and, be have some kind of different career? Because now I got no time. All right. No time. And here's the funny thing too with parenting. I didn't come up with this saying. I don't know who did. The days are long and the years are fast,
Yeah.
are short, right?
Mhm.
And it's true. So now I'm in my 60s, I'm 64. And actually, what's happening now is for a while there, I was always like, remember what it was like when you were in your 40s. Remember what it was like when you were in your fifth,
Cha
just turned
cha. Like
50. Like, oh, yeah. And now I'm like, this is pretty great. And I don't look back and think, things were so much better when I was, this age or
yeah.
whatever. I'm happy with the age I'm at. Um, every once in a while, I do find it amusing, like how some people view aging. I saw, I think it was on Instagram. I don't know. I don't think it was a TikTok where this woman was talking about, she was actually talking about her mom, but she was pretending it was somebody else. And her mom was in her early 60s and she called her an elderly woman. And I went,
I heard something recently too.
elderly woman?
Yeah.
At that, a person in their 60s wasn't an elderly woman 10, 20 years ago, maybe 20 years
Um,
ago. But
my sister, I won't let her, like when she was like 35, 36, she called herself middle age and I was like, you're gonna live past 70. Have you not looked at the women in our life? Like, unless you're actively trying, like knock on wood, but like you're not middle aged. Like we're getting there. Like I understand wanting to have awareness of your body and time,
yeah,
but
yeah. And there are times too when I'm still like, Tracy, sometimes I have to remind myself I'm not 36. Like that's the age I think of myself is 36. So
I
last
love that.
year, it and not in a like weird way or anything. It's just like, yeah. And then I think, oh, but my daughter is that would make my daughter wait, how old is Jackie? Is Jackie 38?
I think she's 38. I think we're the
I
same.
think she's
We're
38.
19,
Yeah, yeah. Then my daughter's 2 years older than I am. Whoopsies. I don't
yeah.
know. Miracle, miracle baby.
But I
Um,
mean, that just shows like there's no perfect time to do something. Like I see people all the time talking about people in a similar situation to me that like you're late bloomers, right? Or like a lot of people who, don't have their major milestones till after 40. And it was like, I've had major milestones, haven't had a wedding, got a couple degrees, I bought a house, right? Like I own a car, I'm living a good life. right? Like what's that from Chicago? Like oh what does she say? Like I'm no one's wife, but I love my life is like
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
my favorite musical songs or lyrics. But I just like when it comes to love, right? Like I could have had 100 relationships between 16 and now and never really experienced love, right? Like I could have gotten married. That doesn't mean like I spirit, right? Like we all these major milestones, we also associate or presume they mean other things. And so like
Well,
from on the outside, if I
yes.
haven't had it yet, I never
And
will.
I would also say that many of these milestones are social constructs too.
Yes. I remember I had a client, an in-home client, to go and we just, talk and make sure she's okay. And she was late 60s, early 70s, divorced, kind of a bit of a shut-in due to some like mental health struggles she was going through in life that
Mhm.
kind of kicked her around. And someone she had a crush on in high school, an old friend of hers moved back to town. And they reconnected, and boy, did they reconnect. And watching her just glow and shine from that point on and talk about it gave me so much hope, that like here she, when her husband died, relatively young, she just figured, oh, that's it for me, right? And she would sit and talk about how she feels like she's in high school again. Like you're sitting there talking like, oh, I feel 36. She's like, I feel like a 17-year-old. I'm an idiot. I should not be doing this. And I was like, you are in love. Like this is so, and like high school, you got a chance with this man that you had a crush on, and it turned out he had a crush on you, right? And like they became a couple, and like she totally restarted her life or just a new phase and chapter in her life in a way she never even dreamed of, right? Like she wasn't sitting there manifesting. Life was just like pushed it on her and here, take it.
Wow. That's, so we talk about my mom occasionally on this show.
Occasionally,
Yeah.
sporadically.
And this was, oh, what year was this? Well, I was pregnant. I had just had Joey. So it was 1987. Um, and my mom had a pretty good speaking career. She spoke on like time management and positive thinking and things like that. She still do some fashion stuff as well. So a lot of speaking to like women's groups, things like that. And before computers, okay, she did not have, there weren't computers for the general public, or at least not for her. All right. So she literally had a Rolodex. That was all her business contacts. She had notebooks, she had books, she had physical products, she had all of this. And she had a house fire. Now, luckily, she also had two friends who lived with her, and she woke up. She actually got them both out of the house. She like ripped this towel apart, put it over their mouths, like kind of very heroic. Anyway, she gets them out of the house. Now, what do I do? She has lost her entire business because her business was on paper
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't backed up in the cloud and there was nothing. So she thought she was done. She was like
Yeah,
62.
like there's no Facebook status update. Hey guys, house fire, new phone, who dis? If I've worked with you in the past, send me
Exactly.
your details.
Exactly. So
Nothing.
1987, 60 something. She's has no clothes. She's got like tennis shoes on. I think, they gave her a stipend or something to use at, I don't know, Target or something. And then she was shamed there because they're like, I don't know what this is. It was horrible. So she's in this furnished apartment while her house is being rebuilt, thinking to herself, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm in my 60s. Who would want to, like, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And she happened to be looking through, at the time, AARP, the magazine it used to be called Good Age. And she was reading an article and it said the fastest growing population it was like people in their 80s. And she's like, what? That's the fastest growing? I'm only 60. These are her words. Hot damn. So
God damn.
she completely switched up her talks She started talking, hand to God, the myths of aging.
Mm.
And that was her new premise, her new platform. And she rebuilt her business from the
Built a
ashes,
new
right?
business.
A new business with a new platform all about the myths of aging. And she continued on that platform until she was 96.
See, and
So
I love
she,
that.
yeah,
That really illustrates like if you're starting over in life for any reason, you're not starting over from scratch. You're starting over from experience, right?
right.
And so when I hear from friends who are like, "Oh, I've worked here at this one company, my whole career, 15 years. I can't learn something new. Like I can't start over." Or, they're 32, 35 and they're thinking about going back to college or going to college for the first time and they're like, "Oh, I'm too old. I can never do that." Or, should I do that? And it was like, well, in 4 years, the time will have passed anyways. So do you still want to be here in 4 years talking about like, oh God, I've almost worked here 20 years, or oh, should I go to college? I'm now 40. Like future you will probably still be wondering, why not try it? Why not do it? I don't know. Some of my favorite stories, even when I was like 19 years old and like Huffington Post and like AWOL News would have like those little click-through stories or whatever, the ones that would always catch my eyes was like Julia Child didn't become Julia Child till she was 50. And like I
Right.
just read like she was quite bad at cooking when she was in her 30s. After graduation, she worked as a copywriter, and during World War II, she was a spy. Things changed in 1948 when she attended the world famous Cordon Bleu cooking school, and she wrote her first cookbook when she was 50 and launched her career as a chef in 1961. And that was all without social media and being an influencer, right? Like
Oh, that's amazing.
she was a
Isn't that
copywriter, a
amazing?
spy, a cookbook author, and a chef. Like
Hey,
what?
there are times, and obviously, I mean, I grew up with my mother, right? And through all of these different iterations and, the myth of aging, and you can do these things at no matter what the age. There are still times when I'm like, why am I writing a young adult book and I'm 64 years old? Like, I shouldn't be writing a teen novel
Isn't
at
like
my age.
the
And
greatest
then,
population of readers for young adult novels my age? Like
no, I know that. Yeah, I know that. But so I still have to give myself those pep talks too. It's like, well, big deal. Who cares? There's no age limit on when you can write something about a person of a certain age. Would it be any different if when I was 30, I was writing about an 80-year-old sleuth? Would that be different? Right? So I don't know.
well, and like what I love about these things and like should I or shouldn't I, like Catherine Joustin, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Joostn. I've just realized I've never heard anyone say her name. Um, but when she, like, you will know her, you might not know her name, but can you picture the secretary on the West Wing, the
Oh,
president's
yes.
secretary?
Yes.
She didn't start acting until she was 42. She had always wanted to. She was a psychiatric nurse up until then. And then she got like a gig on Desperate Housewives was one of her first roles. And then like from there she pivoted to the West Wing when she was
Oh
60.
my
So she started at
goodness.
42 and got what we would call
Wait,
her
how old
big
was
break at
she?
60 for her big break.
I love it.
And like Samuel L. Jackson, who he's been in 100 films, and like his name is synonymous with movies. You feel like he's been in it. He didn't start till he was like 42, 46. Well, I don't know when he started, but Pulp Fiction, he was 46. And that's the role that launched his
The
career.
breakout role. Yeah.
Alan
Wow. I didn't know
Rickman,
that either.
right? Alan Rickman, who we all know as Severus Snape, his one of his most recognizable roles. He was 55 when he got it, and you're like, oh well, he's like British. Why would I have known him? No, he was a graphic designer, and then in his 40s, he started to go 30s and 40s, started to do more in acting, and at 42, he got Die Hard, and like that's kind of what made him like be like, I'm going to do this. And so some people, like Ken Jeong, right? Like we know him from The Hangover, and like now he's a judge on like a singing competition, but he was a doctor until his 40s. And then he was a medical doctor. I think
Oh my
he doesn't even
gosh.
still uphold his license. I don't know, like, but like he
Hey,
was a medical doctor and now he's an actor.
You know what I love about this? So we started off like the myth of time, and now it's like, aging through time, the myth of aging. But also, it's like, I wish that we could make it normal to pivot to, yes, you've got this brilliant career, and maybe it's going great, maybe it's not, I don't know. And gee, I want to try something different at 50, at 60, at 40. And but everyone around us is like, why would you do that? That's not, no, you don't want to do that. Like, it's just like there's this, taboo against like just 180. Uh, and I
Well,
think
there's
it's so much
fear.
healthier. Oh, yes, there is
There's
fear.
fear because it's what we do is associated with their paycheck. It's associated with their health
Mhm.
insurance, right? And typically,
Yes.
you're starting over from experience. Sometimes you do have to go down and pay, or you're seen as having being overqualified. I've gotten that a few times.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never been in
Yeah.
this industry, and I look forward to moving up in it, right? But you also have to talk your way into things that are less than you're doing to assure them that you understand that and you want that and
Yeah.
why. No, like with books like The Giver, where it's like you're assigned a role in life, right? Like you're assigned
Mhm.
your career and like this is what you do, and like someone just, like randomly, like decides let's just picture some mystic. It's just like, Amy, library capital projects, 60 years, right? I wish it was the opposite, where in our, because that is kind of like what our society does, right? There's no, like Lord that's like picking what we do or anything like that, but we kind of do. At 17, 18, applying to colleges and picking a major, that's a big deal, right? Like that's kind of your life path if you're not
Ridiculous.
told.
It's
I want
ridiculous.
I whether it's at just like a company level or just like globally, nationally, I wish we were forced to rotate jobs every 2 years. Imagine like what kind of succession planning that would be, and like that
Wow.
job training where like let's say I'm at a company and like I'm in sales. You know what? Like in 2 years you have to go do this, right? Like we're so focused on specialization, and some things really need it, but some things don't. And I consider myself a master generalist through time, and I love it because I like kind of like how I view time. In order to do my job, I have to see the whole picture, right? I have to see it linearly, and that's how I view time. And I feel like I do better. But other people only want to know the present moment and where they're at right now and what they have to do right now. I hate that. I don't want to be right now. Right now is boring.
Be right now.
But okay, so we've been talking about time from the perspective of it's fake. I bring up in a lot of episodes lately, you can't miss what's meant for you. There's no such thing as wasted time. But it's also not guaranteed, right? Like we are in physical bodies that go through a lot of things and have a lot of hazards and dangers around us that can impact that. And so there's just also like this dichotomy of like, oh, I can't miss what meant for me, but tomorrow isn't promised, right? There's all about like the present moment focus too, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. But well, that's another thing. I think if we were more in the present moment, we wouldn't have so many problems with, well, so many problems. But that whole I can't miss what's meant for me, well, you don't know what's meant for you. So you don't know if you've missed something or not.
Well,
Sorry.
you can't miss what's meant for you. I think it's meant to help people when you don't. It's kind of like that. There's sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers.
Oh, no, I know what
A
it
Garth Brooks
means.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and it's a good saying. But I guess when I think about things like that, I also can go down the hole of like, well, there's reincarnation and maybe it's not this life, but maybe it's the next life. I don't know. Did you ever see On a Clear Day with Barbara Streisand?
Oh.
Okay. So it's too long to go into, but the the main point at the end is that the real, like, unbelievable soulmate love of her life, she's actually not going to be with until the next life.
Oh. See,
And
and sometimes when like I have thoughts about, because there are things in life like I've missed the mark on being an astronaut. Both just, I don't have the brain for it, and I didn't put in the background needed, and there are age limits, right? So I love
Had
Alan
you
Watts has the
wanted to
same.
be one?
I want to do everything, Amy. I also don't want to put in any effort though. So, Alan Watts has one of my favorite quotes of his is maybe the next time around. And so I will actually
I
say that out
agree.
loud. Yeah, sometimes when I'm disappointed or I feel like something hasn't happened for me, or I missed something, didn't take action, wasn't prepared. I'm like, oh, maybe the next time around. And whether
Yeah,
that literally means tomorrow or reincarnation or another year, well, maybe the next time around.
yeah, I think that's a very gentle way of thinking about things without shame, without blame, nothing. Maybe the next time around. I love that. Yeah. So, time as a social construct, of one of which we are running out of
I
here
was just gonna
at the
say,
show.
Zoom is letting us know it believes in the concept of time with the time left countdown, because I believe in the concept of I'm not paying you if I don't have to. That comes with restrictions. There is restrictions when it comes to time, and we are up against ours.
Yeah, yeah. So, if this episode spoke to you, oh my gosh, share it with a friend. And you know the drill. Give it a like. Whatever platform you listen to, like it, subscribe, review. Boy, I tell you what, if you were to rate and or review, well, rate and review, we would so appreciate that. Also, you can reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we thank you for your time and hope you have a bright and beautiful day. Bye.
Bye.